Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. Hopefully you all know why you're here. We're going to be covering, this is a webinar called 1 Year, One Group, 12 Months, Do You Have What It Takes? And we're talking about the 12-month world trips that we do at Remote Year. And I'm going to give you a bit of an overview in a moment as to what that means. So as part of that as well, just to talk about what makes sure you know what we're going to be talking about. I'll give you a little overview of Remote Year, and then I will certainly be doing some introductions to the great people that we have on this call. I actually won't be speaking very much after this, but we're going to be going through a series of different sections related to our 12-month world trips. Everything from people's motivations, their hesitations, did they grow at all, what was community travel like? And I think for many of you who've joined in today, most importantly will be kind of like, what's the advice for others? We've asked everybody on the call today to be really honest. This isn't censored. This isn't us do a sales pitch. It's for us to really deliver the right information to everybody who might be interested in this. It's no use for people joining up for a 12-month trip if they're not sure it's for them, and we want to make sure that everybody's expectations are managed. And so just a little bit about me. I haven't said, I'm Daniel. I am part of the leadership team at Remote Year. I've been working with Remote Year since for 3 years. I couldn't do the maths, for 3 years. Before working at Remote Year, I had never worked remotely before. I'd actually always been very based. I worked in events and venues, so I was running venues, so I was very static, and it's opened up a massive world of opportunities for me now, and I'm very grateful to be so. I'm still based in London, but I'm kind of a part-time nomad. So I spend about half my time here in London, and then has my other half of my time sort of visiting, I suppose, other trips, Remote Year trips. And then also there is my colleague Josh here in a moment. Actually, I'll wait in a moment, and I'll get Josh to introduce himself in a bit. Josh, just to put you on pause. Just a little bit about Remote Year. Just I know there's lots of you who've joined today, and I was able to see like how many people who've joined the call today are familiar with Remote Year, and maybe how many are new. It was really nice to see that so many people dialing in today have been aware of Remote Year, may have been on our mailing list, so might have a really good understanding of what it is that we offer. But also there's quite a lot of people who are new, and that's really exciting to see. So just if you're not sure who we are, like Remote Year, we've been around since 2015. There was a couple of years of hiatus during COVID, as most travel companies. And what we do is we make it easy for you to travel the world where you work. So we're not a company that provides jobs. We're not an employer. What we do is if you're able to travel remotely, then we encourage you to do so. We take care of all of the provisions, so the accommodation and all the logistics. It means that you can focus on your job, because it's really important. Obviously, you need to be able to pay your way, so you can remain productive, but also when your time off, you can make sure that you're as efficient as possible and you maximize your time. So we have staff in every location that allow you to do that. And at the same time, you'll be traveling with a group of other people who are doing exactly the same thing as you, from varying different backgrounds, different nationalities, ages, all of that. So I say we've been around since 2015. And we've got 3 different products. Sounds a bit official. You can travel with us for different periods. So you can travel with us for 1 month, 4 months, or 12 months. And today we're going to be focusing just on the 12-month trips. So the original Remote Year, and the reason we call the 12-month trip the original Remote Year is because that was how Remote Year started back in 2015. We didn't have the shorter periods then. So since 2015, just a bit of an overview. So over 6,000 people have applied to do this, which is a very significant number. And over the years, now 46 12-month trips have taken place. So a large number. And over that, over 30 countries have been visited, and that equates to over 1,700 remotes. Now, remotes is the name of people who take part in Remote Year. So you might hear that name come up on this call. So yeah, a lot of people have taken part. And I suppose it's at this point, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Josh, who I've already mentioned, because Josh has a very interesting story as well. He's now my colleague at Remote Year. Josh, would you like to tell us how you first became involved?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, I actually started as a customer of Remote Year in 2018. So I was on a trip called Aurora that started in Buenos Aires on New Year's Eve 2017, actually. And we traveled for the calendar year of 2018. And by the time my program finished, I decided that I wanted to quit my job and I wanted to figure out a way to work for Remote Year so that I could create a similar impact on other people's lives that all of the people I had encountered who worked at Remote Year had on mine. It was a transformational trip that really changed my perspective about the world, and for the first time allowed me to be like what I felt like was the truest, most authentic version of myself as I was traveling. So that's kind of history as it was. I led a 12-month trip after that, and then currently sit in a role where I am involved in human resources across the organization, and then I also lead the team of community leaders who lead our 4 and 12 month trips around the world. So it's been a magical journey for me, but that's why I'm here today and talking with some of these other 12-month remote participants so that we can share some stories with you as to what life is like on the road.
Perfect. Thank you, Josh. Josh, I'm going to hand it over fully to you in a moment. I'm going to take the slides off. But before I do, I should have mentioned at the beginning, we have got the chat box, so feel free to please put any questions into the chat box. I'll be monitoring that, and there's other teammates as well who will be able to answer things as we go along. I'm going to try and not interrupt our speakers while they're sort of chatting to Josh about their experiences. And if there's time, we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. And then we'll be certainly following up with anybody's questions afterwards. So yeah, feel free to use the chat. I'll be there typing away. And so without further ado, Josh, I will hand this over to you and our lovely panel of guests
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. So yeah, I think we'll kick it off by just kind of going through each of our guests today. And I'll just ask you all if you'll just share like a brief, like kind of 1 minute intro about yourself, where you're from, when did you travel with us, or if you're still traveling with us, and maybe what you do for work, because I think that would be interesting to know for the participants of the webinar here who maybe are curious. So I'll pass it since you're first on the photo here, Eric, for you first.
Perfect. Excited to be here. My name's Eric Lim, born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm back here now. I was on Fangshan, which ended in early January of 2024. And for work, I work in venture capital. So I run a venture capital firm called Potluck Ventures. We invest in technology startups and some CPG food and beverage startups. And then I also do real estate now that I'm back in LA. So I'm an agent, and I also help people invest in development projects across Los Angeles.
Thanks, Eric. And Dara, let's hear from you next, please.
Okay, well, I'm Dara. I'm currently in Lima, Peru. I'm on my 11th month of the 12-month journey. My journey is called Mayala. We started in South Africa in June of 2023, and we'll be ending in Argentina, Buenos Aires, in June of 2024. Prior to this trip, I was a data analyst and decided to take a gap year to go see the world to fulfill a dream I've always had. Um, I'm a little bit different than I guess your average remote because I'm on the later in life scale. I've been married, I have 3 children. They're all grown now, so it was like time for me to go ahead and relive my 20s. I tell everybody to be able to experience what normally people experience in their 20s doing their time abroad in college or whatever it may be. Well, yeah, this has been an amazing experience. So currently I'm taking the year. I'm not working right now, but majority of my group does work. And it's been a pleasure just to be able to see everything and everybody that's on my group, working and non-working, they all say the same thing. Like they're more surprised that the countries that we've been to, they're not necessarily third world countries. Like I guess a lot of us Americans kind of look at other countries as. Um, they have no problem with the internet or Wi-Fi and things of that sort. So I think a lot of those worries and issues kind of got knocked out the first few months that we were on this trip, when we realized that pretty much around the world is a lot like America. Everything, they have working stuff just like we do.
And Ricky, pass it to you.
Thanks, Josh. What's up, everyone? I'm Ricky Neal. I'm originally from South Carolina, and I traveled with Remote Year on Remote Year Bourdain. That was from like the end of December, starting off in Lima, Peru, to the end of December 2018, starting off in Lima, Peru, and we ended in Cape Town. So full 12 month, December 2019. I'm back in South Carolina, working for my same job that I was working with Remote Year, which is called Crisis Text Line. We provide free 24/7 emotional support to anyone in crisis, all via text message. But I work on the partnership side, so managing entertainment and sports verticals. And during Remote Year, I was just really training people on how to become crisis counselors, which, it I mean, I could do it with my eyes closed. It became so easy, right? I was almost like an online professor. So it made my time in Remote Year a lot easier. And then when I got back to the States, I, just kind of changed positions and got a little bit more serious about the job. So yeah.
For the next bit here, like I'd like to ask each of you a little bit, just kind of like what were your motivations? What was going on in life at that point in time when you signed up to make you take the leap with Remote Year? What were you hoping to get out of it? And then like by the end or by the point you're at in it now, Dara, do you feel like you did get that out of it? Maybe let's go backwards in order this time, and I'll start with Ricky.
Yeah, thank you for that. So prior to Remote Year, I was living in New York, commuting about 25 minutes to the Flatiron District every day. This office culture, I love my job, but I was starting to become miserable, but I was also itching to get out the country. And I also think it's important to mention that prior to Remote Year, like I had never went outside the country, but I was like, listen, I'm ready to go. Like, I just really want to take a trip. And so, I thought like, I'm in New York. Maybe I can, take like a quick 4 or 5 day trip to London. Like maybe that'll work out. So that I always kind of toyed around with that idea. And one night I was just laying in my bed and just on my Instagram stories, Remote Year ad. First thing popped in my head, scam. I'm not doing it. So I was just like, okay, like, I don't know. So the next day I kept on seeing the ads and I was just like, okay, maybe this is a sign. So for those next 2 months, I literally, probably ripped Remote Year websites apart. I looked into every single thing that I can find. And then I went on Instagram and followed the hashtags and started reaching out to people that, that honestly look like me so that I could get like a real take on is like, how do you like this experience? Can you tell me more about it? And a lot of people, they responded to me right away. It was like, this is real. It's the best thing, and I think you should do it. And so, to be honest with you, I walked into a Remote Year with zero expectations because I had no idea what to expect. I had never gone out the country before. I mean, honestly, like in my family, we don't fly like that. We're not like big travelers like that. We're from the South. And so my family, they love road trips. And so, the longest flight I had ever taken was from Raleigh to Peru, and after that, it was game on. So I had no expectations going on Remote Year, but at the end of Remote Year, I was a changed man. Like just from a global perspective, the way that things that I was more in tune with myself, things that I knew I liked, things that I knew I would say no to, things that I knew I loved, like just being able to create boundaries for myself, being able to just to just be the biggest advocate for myself. Remote Year, it instills like this sense of confidence in you that you're not gonna get anywhere else, right? So I think I got everything and plus out of Remote Year. I made some amazing friends. I was a super picky eater prior to going Remote Year. And my group, like, there was like, you're not saying no to nothing. Like, boy, eat this broccoli. And I was like, okay, like I don't have no choice, So it was everything. My experience was amazing. Like I said again, like I had never gone out the country prior to this. And I returned back to the States 14 months later. And the only reason I returned was because of the pandemic. COVID. That was the only reason that I came back. And then I gave into the pandemic puppy. ended up getting a dog, an English bulldog, and kind of started chasing the dream of going back to school. So yeah, that's my initial remote year story.
Thanks, Ricky. Same question to you there. What made you take the leap? What were you hoping to get out of it? How are you feeling right now?
Okay, so for me, I'm like Ricky. I'd never traveled out the United States before, so I started off in South Africa, and yeah, that was the longest flight I've ever been on. I've flown like cross country before, but everything's been in state. Um, for me to decide, like Ricky, I've been looking probably a few years prior just how to travel around the world, and either Instagram or Facebook. I can't remember what social site it was, but the remote year advertisement popped up. I was like, okay, well, let me look into this and see what this is about. I was working at the time since COVID was just ending, or coming to an end. I was working remotely for 3 years prior to that during COVID. I tried to get my job to allow me to go ahead and do remote, but they gave me every excuse in the book. So I had to make the decision, is it me or is it my job, pretty much. And so I decided to choose me and fulfill a dream I've always wanted to fulfill. So, and I realized that the cost to do remote year was the same that I was paying in monthly rent anyway. So it was like, why not go ahead and see the world and let them take care of all of like the technicalities of being an adult. And 11 months in is probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life. Just for the simple fact of being able to see different cultures for my own eyes and not just go off of what somebody else is saying about it. And being able to experience those cultures and just experience a different way of life and realizing that we're literally all doing the same things, just on a different piece of land. We're all trying to work, we're all trying to live, we're all trying to be happy and have families. And to be able to see that with your own eyes is a real treasure. So I pretty much, like Ricky, went in with no initial intentions or trying to figure out like, well, what is going to be like. I wanted to go with a blank slate because I really wanted it to be like my own personal opinion. So unlike Ricky, I didn't do very much research other than like, I think I watched a couple of YouTube videos of people who done remote year, and some of them were probably like back from like when remote year originally started. So they might have been a little
Awesome.
bit out of date. But I just went off on a limb of faith and just took that jump to just, be able to take time to find myself, take time to experience the world, and hopefully meet a great group of people, which I went in with positive intentions, and I have nothing but positivity to say about the program. Everybody in my group at this point, we're more like a family than we are strangers, because we literally met like a week before we all met up in South Africa. But now we're like a little family. Definitely friends for life in the group. And I guess like Ricky said, if I have the opportunity to continue to travel, I will continue to travel. There's so many other places I want to see. And even with the 12-month journey, you're set for 12 months on the itinerary, but we also have the opportunity to take like side trips. So I was able to like go to Egypt. I was able to go to like Dubai. I was able to go to South Korea. And so like you get to expand your vision and expand just your whole way of thinking changes on this trip. And it changes for the better as long as you go in it with those intentions to change it for the better. But I think from the start to now, I have grown. My confidence has grown. I haven't been back to the States yet for any long period of time. I went home for a week, and just going home for a week, I saw how much I've grown, and my friends and family grown in their own aspect, but not in the same manner that I have. So I definitely seen somewhat of the growth I've seen for myself. I'm a little hesitant and nervous, but excited to go back home to, like Ricky said, to be with friends and family. But I think the travel itch is always going to be there now for me, just for the fact of just being able to be out here and just experience the world for firsthand is just an amazing thing.
Same question over to you, Eric.
My story was similar. My motivation, I actually signed up for it, remote year program back in 2015, 2016. I think I also saw a Facebook or Instagram ad back then, and I was working in a corporate job. right out of college, and I was like, this sounds amazing. I was working probably 10-12 hour days, and I was like, there, seeing the world, different people, different cultures and foods would be so epic. My daily job was like picking up the phone and calling, people if they wanted like investments, which was like a very like meaningful job at the time. But I was like, I can't be doing this for 30 years straight without, seeing the world. So it just wasn't the time and place for me at that stage in my life. This was pre-COVID, pre-remote work. I was, obviously working for this company, but it always stuck around. Every 2 years when I switched jobs or moved cities, I was like, is this the year I go take a trip, or do I do a 4 month or maybe a 1 month? And so I took baby steps there. I actually did a good amount of traveling when I was younger. I was very fortunate for that. I played tennis, and my family traveled a bit, but I wanted to independently travel. So I don't want to do solo travel, but I didn't want to do it fully alone. I thought like it'd be really great to go but not do everything alone and be stressed out the whole time. So I did like G Adventures back in the day, which was like a 10-day program in Bali. I flew there by myself. We lived over in Taiwan. I went to Bali, and I was like alone. I felt that feeling of like, this is so cool and crazy that I'm going to Asia alone. But when I got there, I made a group of friends of like 15 people that we just like bonded over 15 days. And then I did some traveling with a friend, kind of post COVID lockdown, to like Colombia. I was in Medellin. I went to Florida, Miami, and I was like, this is really cool. If you can like make money, have your job, and travel, like this is like a new unlock in life that like, is like a silver lining, right, of what happened with COVID, right? So I was like, maybe this is the time for me. So I never left. My friend actually the day before maybe I left for a remote year sent me my, back in the day you had to write essays to apply to remote year, and you had to do a video interview. Maybe they'll bring that back, because I don't know if Josh and team will, but my friend sent me the letter I had to, or my essay I had to write to remote year. I was like, here, I just want to give this to you, because he's a writer. He had edited it, helped me edit it. And that was really crazy, because you don't really see where you are going to go in life, but you kind of feel inside like, this is where I want to be sometime. And so I was really happy that I kind of brought that into my life to go on the trip. And for me, it wasn't like anything specific, like, hey, I want to get X, Y, Z. It was like, I want to see the world. I want to live this life that seems really exciting. And the number one thing, like, you'll never be ready. It took me so many even days and conversations with my family, like, should I do this or not? And I was like, do I live leave the traditional work path to do this? But I think the number one question is like, hey, like, if and when you get to 80 years old, will you regret going on this trip? And if your life allows you to do it, whether that's family or relationship or whatever, work, and it does, take the opportunity, because I think life just potentially can get more, more and more and more and more complex, and people rely on you. So go as early as you can. I think that today's the youngest we'll ever be, obviously. And so we had people in our group 22, and our oldest was, I think, 60. It was a great time. So yeah, I got a bunch of great friends out of it. We actually like did a Coachella trip where I mixed some of my old friends with some new friends. We organized the house. That was just like last month. And then I'm going to a couple of their weddings this year. So yeah, you get lifelong friends as the takeaway there.
Thanks, Eric. These next two questions, I think I'm just going to ask each of you, because I want to make sure we get to all of the topics for our audience before the end of the call. But Eric, I'll actually start with you on this one, since you just recently completed your trip. Some of the biggest concerns we hear from participants before they join is related to like having Wi-Fi and like a platform of like a house and co-working space where they can stay productive while traveling. And that even includes sometimes like the time zone differences and how to basically stay productive at work while managing all of those things. From your experience and or the people in your group, like what would you say to somebody with those concerns or hesitation?
That's a great one. I think that's a big concern for mine and a lot of people's when we were deciding and when we started. I think Wi-Fi is like, it's getting, it's not perfect everywhere in the world, but it's solid enough. And wherever we went, like if there was hey, like this co-working space or this house or wherever didn't work, there was another place we were able to do it. Fortunate for me, I'm a little bit more like I have my own business, so it wasn't like, hey, I needed to be online or on a Zoom call from like 9 to 5 and have Wi-Fi that whole time. But we did have people in our group who were like 9 to 5 Pacific, and they were a sales rep, and like, you need to make those calls and close those deals, and or we had like entrepreneurs and similar things, right? And so overall, I wouldn't let the Wi-Fi thing scare you. Use 24/7 co-working space, so that was, you always had a place to work. And a lot of night shifts, you would be there and other people were there and like, hey, like I guess we're both working, Eastern time this month or whatever, if you're in Cape Town or Vietnam or wherever. So it is a change. It's not as easy as getting up 9 to 5 in your time zone, but you also get to walk outside and, be in a whole different part of the world. So I think that's the trade-off that you have to decide.
Thanks, Eric. Um, one of the other concerns that is often kind of a big concern for folks is like joining this 12-month trip. You're joining it with a community of strangers, and it's this hesitation or fear of like, am I going to fit in with the community? Am I going to find belonging with this group of people that I'm going to be traveling with for 12 months? So kind of similar to what I asked Eric, from your experience and or from like what you've seen with your group, what would you tell somebody with those fears or hesitations?
Just from speaking my own experience, I felt like my first day of like middle school or my first day of high school is kind of how I went into it. You're not guaranteed to get along with everybody. You may not even like everybody when you first meet them, but I think if you're going in with no expectations, but still keep a positive mind frame to be open and to really be yourself. Because I think if you're spending 12 months with people, like if you come in here and you try to act like you're Neo from the Matrix and you're really just whatever the guy's name before he became Neo in the Matrix, that's going to shine through eventually. So my best advice is to come in, being your full authentic self, you'll be fine.
That mainly answers it. Yeah, I guess I would just say like, no, did you feel like you were able to form a bond in a community and fit in with your group?
Yes, I feel like, but that's just because I came in with an open mind frame. I think for probably the first month or two, everybody is filling out everybody. And we all kind of came in at different times. So we all kind of like met each other kind of in different times. Like I came in with like 2 or 3 other people. We all came from the airport at the same time. My group, I think we started off with like 18 people. And it probably took about 2 days for all of us to actually get there. So you have a welcome dinner in the beginning where you actually get to like introduce yourself to everybody. In those first couple of weeks, everybody's filling each other out. The one thing that you have to remember that on this 12-month journey, y'all are all doing the same thing. Y'all all decided to do the same thing at the same time. So in some parts of it, y'all are all on the same trajectory or the same path. Y'all are all trying to find something out of the 12 months. So that's something that y'all are all going to agree on at first. And you're going to, and it's up to you to build the relationships that you want to build.
Awesome. I think that actually kind of segues us a little bit into kind of the next part. We can talk about community a little bit more. And Ricky, one of the things, and actually, I guess to touch on something Eric said, we do have an application process again where we do an interview and we do a little bit of like a written assignment to gauge, people before they join a program. But Ricky, one of the things I always talk about with people who are thinking about joining is that like joining a 12-month community is a commitment, right? Like it's not like it's relationships with this community of people that you're committing to be together for 12 months. And so we've had a question of that in the chat too, kind of like, what's that like, navigating like potential drama or whatever with the group. Can you just tell me about like what that commitment feels like and like what you felt like that required of you and or what you expected from other people in your group?
We honestly, we addressed everything head on. It wasn't any sugarcoating anything. Like it was like, listen, like let's talk about it. Like you got a problem. Is there an issue? I think a lot of the times, a lot of the issues that happened in our group were mainly from people feeling like they were left out. But that's also, you know, too, a part of you finding your tribe and finding the people that you click with. Like, you're not going to get invited on every yacht ride. You're not going to get invited on every side trip. You're not going to get invited out to every bar, right? Um, and that's kind of the point of a remote year too. Like, you're building relationships with different people in different, you know, scenes. And I think for the most part, me, like, I'm a non-confrontational guy. Like, I don't do drama anyway. So, you know, I'm very positive, and like 9 times out of 10, when you see me, I have a smile on my face. So any type of any vibe or anything that was said that I felt like was trying to like dull like my remote year light or my journey, like, boundaries were set. Like, okay, I see, you know, I see what type of time you're on, and I'm not trying to go that route with you. So, you know, I would just always like redirect myself to like, why you're on here, like, why am I doing it, you know? But the drama, it was, yeah, I didn't deal with it too much. And if there was drama in the room, I also just remove myself. Like, that was the beautiful part of it. I could just go back to my room, and yeah, I'll see you tomorrow and we could talk about it. But it was, and also to mention as well, our group, we didn't have much drama. I think when emotions got high towards the end of the program, that's when we kind of started seeing like things happening. But for the most part, we were pretty like, I think for the most part, easy going group.
Yeah, I just add one thing there too. You know, I think like a 12-month is a long time in a lot of ways. It's also a lot, you know, short time in some ways, but inherently there's just going to be stuff that comes up, right? So it's you know, the group's like attitude towards how to solve it, you know, and address it. Like one time we had like a town hall where everyone like, you know, it was really funny. It was like we all came there and we're like, you know, everyone kind of had like a little bit of sensitivity or, you know, anger or whatever, and we just like talked about it and we're like, hey, we're like month 10, let's, you know, if we were month 1 stranger friends, like, would we have done this? And like, you just get a little bit used to people and take a little bit, you know, people for granted, or you have shorter patience, but keeping that level of like, hey, like, you know, let's act as like we are. Sometimes you treat your friends as nicer than you treat your family, some people say, right? So keeping that kind of love there. And then the one thing I wanted to add was like we had a community leader, Lau, who traveled with us for all 12 months, who works for Remote Year, and she was really good about being the person for everyone to kind of come to one-on-one, and would also like lead group discussions if we needed to. It's not perfect, but you know, I think she and the group like then was able to just like, hey, why are we on this trip? Like, whatever that does come up is like, let's just look outside and see like the opportunity that we're on. Like, we're also wasting time. Like, you know, sometimes there are big issues, and sometimes you do have views that are political or religious or whatever, because you're seeing so many parts of the world that brings that stuff up. But that's like the growth in it, right? To see someone else's view and be like, wow, that's really interesting. Have I thought about that? And like, there's actually like the learning in it too, if you don't want to just like be like, oh, that's a little bit uncomfortable, right? So there's a lot of ways to look at it, and not just like, hey, drama's bad. Is like, why is it coming out? And like, maybe that's like the learning or perspective that you haven't seen or understood before.
I think just two things I'll add here is for everyone in attendance is two things that we do like kind of on the front end. One, we have the community leader, like Eric mentioned, who is going to set kind of like boundaries, expectations of how we want to like respectfully communicate throughout the program. And then two is just like that understanding of like how do we want to treat each other when scenarios come up, because it's a microcosm of life, right? Like, you don't go through 12 months in your normal life anywhere that you live without having an argument with a friend or a family member or somebody that's close to you that you love. And so like the same thing is life in remote year. We say the same thing about weather and everything else, right? Like life goes like this always, it's never like this. So that'll definitely happen while you're traveling for 12 months with us. So let's do maybe one more question for all three of you here, and then we'll go to kind of our last one that's more a bit of on advice. But I'm curious to know from like personal growth, and we can start with you, Dara, but like, how do you feel like this has changed you personally? In what ways do you feel like you've grown over the last 10 and a half, 11 months that you've been with Malala traveling?
Before the program, I had became very introverted, and I was fine with being introverted, but at the same token that when you're too introverted, I feel like it dims your confidence. It kind of like you're dimming your light to kind of like not be seen. And then coming with the program, it really brought out my confidence and made me be more extroverted. Um, just to allow people to be able to get to know me. Um, and then I also like tested my own boundaries as far as like just trying new things and being able to experience different things where, I was doing it for me and I wasn't doing it to please anybody else or to have anybody else uh judge me for what I'm doing. It was just something for me to do. So that actually helped build my confidence as well. And then just knowing that, the world is your oyster and you can do anything and you have the opportunity to do so. There's many opportunities on the 12-month journey where you'll be tested out of your comfort zone in many ways, either with like experiences or just your own personal journey and you're trying a new restaurant that maybe some food you never had before, but I think it puts you in the mind frame, since you're already out here doing these new things, you might as well test your boundaries as well. Just because it kind of goes along with the 12-month journey. You're already out here. It's almost like an adrenaline rush to try something new to add to the experience.
Same question to you, Ricky.
For me, like remote year was my year of like saying yes to everything. I think the only thing that I did not do, and I'm still hesitant to this day, is like the whole hot air balloon thing. Still makes me a little weak in the knees, but I literally did everything else. And I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I was a super picky eater, right? Like I'm talking just very picky eater, but I tried so many different foods. I'm able to like, you know, go out to different restaurants and try different like I don't know. It's amazing how my taste buds have expanded since remote year. Fun fact, I like tried my first piece of sushi ever in Japan. And I know that sounds even wild to say, but like, that's just, you're in the environment and why not, take advantage of it. If you're going to have sushi, at least have it from one of the best places in the world. I think, like I said, again, it also instilled like this confidence in me that like, I just like, you don't get anywhere else. Like you're able to like, just, I don't know, walk in rooms and just feel confident about like yourself, your story, like your journey from remote year. It's so unique that like only 30 other people just got done doing what you did, so they have that similar experience. But it was a year of it also, I think it also allowed me to just really go and chase my dreams, which is why I'm going back to school right now, right? Like just seeing people who were just so passionate about, their jobs or what they're doing, like even the content creators, the software engineers, like the people, like taking gap years, like just really figuring life out. Like it allowed me to just really get that tunnel vision when I came out and like do the thing that you've always wanted to do. So personal growth, like out of this world.
Thanks, Ricky. And Eric, I'd love to hear from you on that one too.
What Ricky said in the middle of that was basically how I felt was, if I thought it was like a big opportunity for growth and like just to understand and learn and grow and stretch yourself. That, I think being able to walk into a room or walk into any new environment and be able to just survive, figure out how to get to, restaurant and order and talk to people and still share laughs or share stories. I think having done that for 12 months, I think it's just given me a really nice perspective and confidence in myself. And I think that was what I wanted from it, is to grow. And I think being in this community gives you a really nice safe harbor, but then also you're still out there and you still can push your limits. Hot air balloon, I think Ricky was saying, there was one like big, cliff jump that I didn't do, or some people went like skydiving or, bungee jumping that I didn't do, but I did, other platform jumps off like a Guatemala lake, that was like something I would have never done before. So you gotta have your own limits. I think, having that opportunity every day to push it a little bit more was what I was kind of yearning for. So that's what the year gave me.
Eric, I'll ask you one more just because we've gotten a lot of questions. We kind of we kind of kicked off the community part by just tackling a little bit like of is there drama and what does that sound like? But can you give like a I think that might have caused a little bit of fear even, but can you give like a realistic purview of like what was the group dynamic like for your 12 months traveling? Like overall, how would you describe the community, I guess?
Our community is very, very interesting. I think we had so many different types of people with different backgrounds and perspectives and like likes and dislikes that was like really interesting, right? Different walks of life. We had like people that were not, younger. We had some people that were older. We had some people that were very liberal. We had some people that were very conservative. We had people that were, coming from US. We had some people from like Canada, and we had people from like New Zealand. So like, I think like we all like understood that we all have different perspectives. I think like one tangible example, I think people in the chat were asking about like, hey, like, what's one tangible example? Like we were in South Africa and we're doing like a walking tour, right? And there's a lot of history with apartheid and a lot of other events that happened that were really hard to like understand why it happened or what happened or what were the reasons. And we're, as Americans, sometimes you learn about that, but you don't learn as much as if you're in that environment, right? And so I think people had different perspectives, right? Some people are like, oh, maybe that's if we had to do it again today, like how would we address it? And some people had a different view, right? And that was very uncomfortable, right? And it was like, hey, yesterday we were just like traveling, having drinks and friends, and today we're like disagreeing on like how we would address that issue today. And I think that's like we had to have like, hey, like group, like we're in a way like kind of like everyone share the experience and talk about it. And then like our tour guide, who's like a local there, was able to like talk through both the scenarios. And I think that's very interesting. And then there's other ones of like room accommodations, who you're rooming with that month, or there's this great line that if you join, I'm sure they'll be part of every deck. It's a comparison is a thief of joy. So for us, it's like, hey, like we're on this journey, and how do we kind of take the 1 month you get maybe a better lighting and a better room than others, and others like that. So, and it's all just like people getting overwhelmed. People when they travel, for example, like for you two, I think it was their first time out of the country. Like it's a lot for people to understand and take in, right? And so I think that mixed with everything else, like everyone's in their own journey. So I think like that's kind of how drama kind of arises, but it's never like, hey, I don't like that person, I want them off. Like maybe it's like, hey, that person like pissed me off or said something wrong, but how do you address it? And that's kind of like how you move forward.
Thanks for adding a bit more context there. I think that's helpful for everyone. Cool. So I want to jump into kind of our last question here, because I feel like it'll take a little while for each person to answer. And then if we have any time left, maybe we can do a couple more. But let's start with maybe Ricky on this one. But like, what would be your advice to someone if they're, if they're thinking about doing it, they're kind of on the fence? Yeah, just any advice from you, if they're thinking about doing it, or like once they sign up, any advice for like preparing for the trip or anything like that?
Do it. Do it. Like there's no if and buts or about it. Do it scared, do it afraid, do it while you're excited. Sign up and do it. Book your ticket and go. Like I mean, I don't I don't even know what else to say. Like you have to walk into it with no expectations. You have to walk into it with an open mind. You know, granted, there's tons of like packing tips that I could give you. No. Like that'll matter, month 3 and 4. You're gonna get rid of half your wardrobe anyway, so that'll matter later down the line. But like just just prepare yourself to just like to one, set boundaries, to show up as your true authentic self. Like don't be afraid to like hide a certain part of yourself. Like our backgrounds are what makes this experience so unique. And then like just be open like to everything. Like push your boundaries, push your limits. You know, this is coming from a first gen college student, like had never been out the country before. Like the first, when I told my mom about this, the first thing she said was like, why are you going to all them crazy countries? And I literally like, Mom, you know what? I don't have time for it. And like, I got to call you back, because I had my mindset on my growth and on my journey, and just really seeing the world in the way that I wanted to do it. But do it. It's absolutely amazing. Like the ups absolutely outweigh the downs. And I think for me, the only down that I had was, and the only thing that I really worried about was getting sick. If you know Mexico City, you know Montezuma's revenge is gonna come and get you, you know. And then like I got really sick in Asia as well. And like those just were really it, but it was just mainly because of, you know, food and things like that. But do it, guys. Like 2 words, absolutely do it.
Thanks, Ricky. Dara, same question. Any advice, anyone thinking about it, or any advice to someone preparing to start the journey?
I think I agree with a lot what Ricky has said. As far as preparing, I went in it with like, oh, I have to make sure I have all of the things to make me comfortable when it came to packing. And I feel like I completely overpacked. Best advice I can give on that is pack enough clothes for a week, but a suitcase big enough to add to it, because in every country you're going to see something that you want that you know that you're not going to be able to get. It could be something as simple as a hat or a t-shirt or a piece of artwork. It could be anything. So I would say pack for a week, because every country you go to, the climate is going to change. And there's plenty of stores that you can go to pick up the necessities that you need. From hygiene necessities to, you know, outerwear, swimwear, you still get everything overseas. So I would say pack lightly, pack for about a week, and then you can build your wardrobe from there. Because other than that, you're gonna have like extra bag fees with the airlines, and all their websites and prices are not necessarily as clear as it may seem. You'll get to the airport and they'll tell you something different. I probably spent more money on extra bag fees because of all the luggage that I have. I could have probably financed a whole other trip. Not a 12-month trip, but probably a good weekend to a 7-day trip. So pack light and build your wardrobe as you go. It's going to change. But like Ricky said, going with an open mind, understand that you are going to different countries and it may not be the same standards that you have in the United States, but they're still very livable standards. Like, it's not like you're going to have to use the bathroom in a hole or anything like that. Like everywhere we've been, they have functioning bathrooms, working showers, our living accommodations are, you will find the same apartments in the United States. So I think you should just not worry about those small details, because you will live very comfortably. And just going with an open mind and be open to trying new things. I mean, this is a whole new experience, so you might as well just try as much as you possibly can and every opportunity that you can.
Eric, I want to ask you to add one bit of advice on your part, just if you had to experience this. But one of the questions somebody sent in was kind of related to like the packing up of your life back home before you left. So like if you had a car you needed to sell, if you needed to put stuff in storage, things like that. So like general advice, but then if you have some advice on that, can you add it as well?
Yeah, for the second question there, I like packing up your life. You know, it's just like moving apartments. I feel like it's you kind of know what you need, but you kind of just have to start doing it. And then you're like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. I actually had bought like a new car the year before, so I still have my old one. I hadn't like sold it yet. Like my friend was like using it, so I had 2 cars I needed to sell within like 2 weeks. My trip left like January 7th, so it was like holidays. You know, I packed some of my stuff. I sold a bunch of it. I packed some with family. But you know, it's one of those things where like the excitement from the trip will just build, and you'll get so excited that like all that stuff is just like you just do it. It's like you just have to get, you know, like you brush your teeth in the morning, you go to work and you do your chores. Like it's kind of like you just get it done. So I wouldn't worry about that. Obviously plan, you know, enough time. Don't like hop on the trip like next week and be like ready to go. Like have some time to like, you know, look up the places, and you'll get to meet the group, and you got to talk to your family, and like, you know, kind of like what Ricky said. I was like, hey, like your parents or your friends might not get it, but like you know you made the decision. You kind of just like explaining it to them that you're ready for it and prepare. So I don't think it's too difficult, but yeah, you'll have to do some of that. You have to get health insurance, travel insurance, whatever, but it's all figure outable, I would say, or even visas and stuff like that, depending on where you live. But yeah, on the first question I would say echo what they both said. I said earlier, like, hey, will this be a regret you have later in life? That's probably the easiest way to think about it. But if you're more like analytical and trying to get in the weeds, it's like, what's the risk reward? Like the reward is massive, and like if you don't like it, like you just like come back home and like you pay another month fee or whatever the cancellation is, right? And like obviously you don't want to go into it like that, but if you're listening to this or you signed up or you're probably following remote year, there's something in there that's like, hey, how do you make this work? And I would say the last thing is, I was single and able to do it pretty easily, but like we had people in our group that Jess and Jake, they were engaged couple, and they wanted to do it, and they did the whole trip. And Jess actually worked like a 9 to 5 sales job. That was the example. And then Jake was also doing like 9 to 5 Pacific time and made it work. So if it's there and you feel it, it's probably the right call, I would say.
Thanks, everyone. I think I will pass it to Mr. Daniel to wrap us up then, but really appreciate you all sharing some of your stories and experience with us today.
What happens next? Well, for those of you listening, wherever you are, at home or maybe not at home, we'll send you a survey now. It'd be lovely to get your feedback. And if you've got any more questions, that's a great opportunity to do that. We'll provide you with details as well. If you want to speak to any of our team, there are certainly people that you can speak to. Many of our team are fully nomadic, so we practice what we preach. And so we can hopefully answer a lot of your questions as well. And we've been talking about our 12-month trips today. There's 3 available at the moment. So if you're like, oh, maybe we've got one taking part, no, setting off in July this year. That's around the world. And then we've got 2 departing in January next year. So it's going to be the same trip for the first 8 months. Everybody's going to be together, and then it's going to divide and one group's going to go to Asia and the other group are going to go to Africa. You would choose which one you want to do, by the way. We don't choose for you, you'd select. So all of those details are on our website. And also a bit of a plug, we're doing a promotion. If anybody did want to book a 12-month trip in May, then we're running a promotion and you would get your 12-month free should you be with us at the end, which I would hope you would. So that's it for now. As I said, we'll share details about how you can continue this conversation with us. Thank you again to everybody for taking part, and hopefully we'll be having more conversations with everybody soon. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, Ricky, there, Eric. Really appreciate you.